My name is Wendellyn Hall, and I did my experiential learning project with Canopy Village of Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. In the past, they were known as Children's Village, but they actually recently changed their name. Founded in the 1980s, Canopy Village, formerly known as Children's Village, has been focused on providing services for both kids and families who just need a little bit of help due to a variety of circumstances. Canopy Village provides services like emergency housing and support services for families, but they also have diversion programs that help keep kids out of juvenile detention and get them back on track for a positive, impactful future. When we were given this assignment, I didn't know where I wanted to volunteer, but I've always enjoyed volunteering. I've done a lot of volunteering in my past. So I really just began looking around the community to see who needed help. I contacted people I'd previously volunteered with, and none of them really needed any help with any major projects, like right at that moment. But I know that my mom's boss is extremely involved in our community. She's a member of the local Rotary Club, so I asked if she knew of anywhere that might need a project completed. She connected me with the CEO of Canopy Village, and from there my project just blossomed. My initial meeting with Mary, who was not the CEO but the leader of the department that I'd be working with, was we were just deciding what their needs were, what I could do with their needs, and what skills I had to really do a great project that would have an almost immediate impact. We eventually decided to focus on their after-school program and their need for backup activities. They've had situations where scheduled volunteers were unable to make it due to sick kids, forgetting, just basic life circumstances. And when that happens, they're put into quite a pickle because they have an unknown amount of kids coming for their after-school program that they have committed to not only entertaining but providing educational resources for. My first few weeks were really just focused on setting up the binder that I made. I was choosing what activities would be stored in it, as well as trying to figure out the best design. I was really given pretty much free rein. I was shown where the supplies were, so I chose a binder of a pretty adequate size. It ended up being quite full by the end of my project, and I made a cover sheet, and then I just started looking for educational activities. In the end, my binder ended up being very versatile depending on what the kids were doing on any given day and how many kids were there, because that's also a variable that they see a lot of fluctuation with. Their after school program each night or afternoon is about 3 hours long, so they needed a variety of activities for the different parts of the afternoon. They typically break it up into 3 different sections, with the first section being a welcome activity. As the kids trickle in, they want something that is easy to join into, so not a board game because it's very hard to really be inclusive of everybody as they show up. And while they've had some of those in the past, it's pretty hard to plan an easy to jump into activity that doesn't need continuous directions. After their welcome activity, they have an hour to an hour and a half long educational activity before they have dinner. Depending on the day of the week and what all they have planned, this activity could be shorter, it could be longer, but it'll be once everybody is there, and they really wanted it to be educational and even hands-on. We're still looking into yoga videos, but the resources for that are not quite as handy as going to the store and getting a bottle of cola to make a bottle rocket. In this binder that I made, I provided a variety of positive coloring sheets and age-appropriate word searches that they could pull out if they're in a pinch. I chose the coloring sheets that had positive messages, sometimes some sarcastic messages, but these kids are already coming from potentially a very rough situation, and so I didn't want to put any type of negative thoughts, even if they're sarcastic ones, anywhere in their vicinity. But I also know how difficult extremely positive messages can be when you're having a bad day, so I tried to keep it neutral but still in that positive tone. I've also experienced as a student in high school and middle school, some word searches are just too hard. I'm not familiar with the words and it's just super difficult. But there's also word searches that are more for kids. So I tried to find age appropriate options, and so I chose cinema and Disney because I, even at 20, am an avid lover of Disney, and I want to encourage that with kids because these are the kids that are really being forced to grow up fast. And if I can encourage just a little bit of pixie dust in their lives, that's what I want to do. For the main activities, I pulled together a collection of STEM projects. They were both hands-on and the brain was being engaged. So not only were they doing things with their hands, but they were using, their thinking caps. It was very fun talking to them to see what they wanted to do. Some of the STEM activities I came up with were make your own bouncy balls, a 9-layer density tower, which was an even more advanced version of an experiment I had done in the past. I learned a lot while doing this as well. And there may or may not have been some experiments that I was very excited to test run. I tested a few of these projects, and while my successes were slightly hindered by the fact that I have no prior experience teaching, the educational activity went really well, and I got positive reviews from the students that I did it with. And that activity that I kind of did a pilot run with was an escape room. I do not have a lot of experience setting up escape rooms, and I have zero experience starting an activity with middle schoolers and high schoolers, and so I did need a little bit of help along the way, but we were able to pull off a really cool escape room, and there was a lot of critical thinking involved, as well as laughter, excitement. They were solving puzzles, which is always very fun when you solve a puzzle, and I wanted that happy feeling at the end of it, and so I was very grateful for that positive review that I got. My binder was also a success for the people running the program. They appreciated how well thought out and organized the binder was, and my intention was to make it easy to use, and I'm really glad that this was a recognized quality. I ended up using multicolored tabs to highlight the different types of activities, and in the front of the binder, which I wish I could show, but they actually needed it today and tomorrow, it had materials lists in the front of the binder for every activity. And so I broke it down in a super easy to read format so the teacher or whoever was running the afternoon could look at it, go into the pantry, see what they needed, and put together a really fun, educational, exciting activity. During my time at Canopy, I was able to observe so many different situations and see how they were handled. I noticed that everyone I met was a leader in their own area, but they also acknowledged that others had a say in some of the decisions. This situation that I kind of had in mind when I was writing this, I started working with Maura instead of Mary. Mary ended up leaving during the project, so Maura took over, and she was showing me kind of some of the ways they do paperwork while still keeping it confidential. And she ended up having a family that came in and they needed donations to decorate a new apartment. The dad was getting custody and it was a very exciting moment, but she had to coordinate with the people who received the donations because she didn't know what donations they could really receive to meet the needs of this parent. And so it was very cool to see the collaboration and see what they were able to pull together for a parent who was really excited to be able to help their kids grow up in a stable environment. Their leadership style is also one that I have very little experience with, but from my outside perspective, it seems extremely productive and stable. They have a very flat leadership style, and so there are very few supervisors. Everybody's more on an equal playing field with a lot of say in what happens, and that was very cool to see when there were situations where Maura could make the executive decision without worrying about going over someone's head on a decision. While I know that every business and every leader has things they can improve upon, Canopy Village is excellent in so many ways. I have very few recommendations for them. But what I can recommend is kind of in the zone of marketing. When I was looking at the marketing side of things for one of our nonprofit analysis, I noticed that they advertise in like a wide range of formats, but there was a lack of printed advertisements. But in this day and age, and their target demographic, digital is definitely the primary format that they should be focusing on. And they have a social media page, they have an updated website, they are very tech savvy and very much so have a digital footprint that brings a lot of awareness to their organization. If they were targeting an older demographic, I would recommend printed information in the newspaper, but their advertising is spot on, in my opinion, for who they're trying to reach. One of the other things I thought about when considering new marketing tactics is collaborating with a local business for fundraisers. And they do this a little bit, but I haven't seen them collaborate with Jitters, which is a coffee shop that actually started here in the Coeur d'Alene area and recently expanded to Lewiston. But they do a lot of fundraising for the Coeur d'Alene area, for schools, for groups in need. And so I've worked with them in the past. I would love to help make that bridge between Canopy and Jitters and see if we can't get a coffee themed fundraiser going for donations. Canopy has so many different programs that they are constantly looking for funding for. They're currently building a boys' home, which is an incredible task. It's a big need, but it's also a very big project, and I am so excited to see how it turns out. Canopy Village is just such a wonderful organization. They're focused on giving disadvantaged youth in our community a second chance at a good future, and I've been welcomed back by them, and I'm actually continuing to complete smaller projects for them for as long as I'm able to. These projects weren't big enough for this assignment, but there's still things that need to be done, and I'm really enjoying being able to help with however my skills are needed.